One day, I went to my local thrift store in hopes of finding something a little unique or even neat. I normally don't get lucky and only find retro equipment that I can't really make use of. However, this time around, I got lucky. And with some haggling, I was able to get 3 computers for $30 or $10 a piece. But there obviously is a catch. So, let's explore these PCs together and see if we made out with a good find on this one. For starters, it is easy to tell that these PCs are a bit old. Without even looking inside them, we know they ran Windows XP and Vista, which means that this hardware is not going to be very powerful. But that doesn't mean that they aren't usable still. I knew that the computers would not be of high quality, as they were the exact same ones I used in the computer labs when I was growing up back in school. They even had some of the school stickers still on them. Makes me feel old just looking at them. Anyways, we have HP, Compaq, and HP Compaq? They're all HP. I also know that they are all using Pentium CPUs, so they shouldn't be too bad, as long as they can run. So let's go ahead and try to work on booting up these PCs. We will start with the oldest one, the HP Compaq Evo D51S, a Windows XP machine running a Pentium 4 that I believe is clocked at 2.4 GHz with a 1GB of DDR RAM. Yes, DDR, the first one, rocking a wicked sick 20GB hard drive with floppy disk and CD-ROM drive bays in the front. Well, all of them have floppy disk drives and CD-ROMs, but anywho, this one was assembled on the 9th of July 2002. I know this because it was stamped on the side panel. All of them are stamped, in fact. It gives us perspective on how old these machines truly are. This one being the oldest of the group, I was surprised that it was very clean on the inside. This is either a good thing or a bad thing depending on how we look at it. Hopefully it was just in a dust-free environment and wasn't cleaned per se. So I got started on booting up this PC again to try and bring it back to life, being immediately met with a counter on the BIOS screen that was counting up in megabytes. I never let it finish, like an idiot, and kept rebooting the PC. I then gave up at this point after spending 20 minutes troubleshooting to see if I can boot up the next PC and see if I can get something running hopefully and come back to this in the future. Our second desktop is also a bit old, the HP Compaq DC5100 being assembled on the 7th of April of 2006. It looks just as old as the first PC in this trilogy, but it's also just as clean as the previous one. It's rocking a Pentium 4 HT clocked at I couldn't figure out what it was clocked at, but I believe it should be running at 2.8 GHz or higher based off of the MT model, which had some decent speeds for the time. These old PCs don't have a lot of info about them online since they were honestly pretty forgettable. But anywho, I started troubleshooting and powering on this PC to have the exact same issue with megabytes counting up. This time, however, I let it go and counted up to 512, which I realized was the RAM. Which means that the first computer should be workable when I figure out the fate of the other two later on. I hit enter, which put me through a number of BIOS messages and error codes to finally boot to Windows XP. Success! Finally! However, it wasn't a full success, as when I booted, I ran into another error which I didn't read as I was too tired to troubleshoot what I thought was a big issue, as it seemed at first I needed to be connected to the school network to use this PC normally. Or I was just making up excuses for being impatient with old hardware. Honestly, it is a 50-50. So I went on ahead and turned it off so I may try booting Linux off of this bad boy, and I went on ahead and chose Debian 11, as it can run on a 32-bit system, which all of these are, and it froze during boot. Wonderful. I tried waiting for 2 minutes but nothing happened, so I gave up and went on ahead and tried booting back up to Windows XP, and now I can't boot up to Windows anymore. Great. And no matter how much I try to enter a boot menu on the BIOS screen, nothing occurs. Well, I guess I should move on. The last one, and hopefully trouble-free PC here, is the HP Compaq DC5800. Assembled February 28th of 2009, it is the newest PC in terms of everything. From the case to the parts, it should be a whole lot better to work with. However, it is missing its RAM and hard drive for whatever reason. The other ones had theirs, so I don't get why this one wouldn't have it. Maybe the parts were faulty. Regardless, I went on ahead and put in some DDR2 RAM I had lying around inside to try and boot it up with an SSD running Linux. But yeah, I recognize the error is a RAM error, but no matter how many times I reseated the RAM, took them out, or tried every step I could consider, I ended up at a dead end. This was as far as I was going to get. Questions start to arise. Did I waste $30? Are these PCs complete washes with issues completely out of my control? I feel like I overestimated my diagnosing skills. Maybe I am just unlucky, going from finding gaming PCs on the side of the road and being given 27 laptops that all just need minor repairs or upgrades to this. All good things must come to an end, I guess. I went to bed, ready to wake up and forget all about it. But instead, when I did wake up, I got some breakfast and caffeine in my system to then get straight back to diagnosing issues. I even fixed up 2 other PCs before I went to bed that night that I was going to use for another video and try slinging into this one and to try to patch up what I felt was going to be a big waste of work and ultimately be a non-video. But I was committed to getting these 3 school PCs working properly no matter what, or at least one of them. And luckily, I figured out the quirks of the boot configuration of the BIOS, leading to successful boots. Finally, we can look at each of these PCs again and see what is at least on the first 2 hard drives. But first, a short explanation on how I got the BIOS to cooperate. Simply, spamming keys on the BIOS screen to enter setup was all it actually took to access the PCs completely. So whenever diagnosing in doubt, spam. Works every time. The DC5100, as far as I could tell, was just a school computer for students, which meant that admin control was taken away. No right-clicking, creating folders, or anything crazy without having to use a drop-down menu to get access to something. I was able to get Debian 11 to run on it, which was a good sign. It ran a bit slow, but at least it could be used for very simple tasks, like writing or listening to music. Maybe I will explore more with this in the future, but for now we should move on to the next PC. The oldest PC was probably the most interesting PC out of all of these in terms of what was actually on the hard drive. Turns out, it was a teacher's PC. I will blur out all the private/confidential stuff like how I have before, but honestly, this was a very interesting PC to look at. Half of the files were as you would expect, class schedules, assignments, yearly curriculums, stuff like that. But the other half was surprisingly games, including a GameMaker game called 1945, which at first just seemed completely random. Why would you have games on a teacher's PC? But I think I realized why it was on here. Another game, also a GameMaker game, was called Fruit Smashers. I couldn't figure out what to do at first, but eventually realized that you were meant to click on fruits and avoid bombs. A score is kept in the top left corner of the window, and that is pretty much it. I then realized this was meant for smartboards, probably for students to play for completing all of their work for class that day, or for a fun day at the end of the year or something. Very interesting, honestly. I also found Bejeweled 3, which is a classic that I would play all the time growing up. It could barely run, as when things exploded the frame rate dropped really hard. Still, very cool this PC worked as well as it did despite its age and power. Outside of those things though, that was about it for this PC. And now, for the last PC, for the last time, the DC5800 had issues with RAM, so I went on ahead and pulled out my last possibly usable DDR2 RAM sticks, which were some random Kingston ones, and gave it one last go. And luckily, I was able to boot it up to life. Finally, I was hoping this one would work since I plan to use it for a video in the near future, but anyways, I put in an SSD with Debian 11 pre-installed so we can boot from that. But my luck ends here, as I have run into a kernel error, it seems, and I don't have the time or knowledge to fix it. So for now, let's just put this PC on the back burner, as it probably works, and wrap things up. What a wild ride this was. I have a few ideas of what I'm going to be doing with these PCs, especially the DC5800, but I need to work on so many other things and balance, real life right now before I can tackle these guys, or sell them, part them out if need be, More importantly though, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. I hope you enjoy the video. If you want to see more, you can always subscribe and comment what you would like for me to do with these PCs, or comment anything really. I always love to hear what you all think. I appreciate you guys, and as always, thanks for watching.